allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you everyone for being here, whether it's in person or virtually. I'm the Vice Chair, Shelley Scaff, and I will be conducting tonight's board meeting. So first off, I guess, Dave, do you have any questions on attendance?
Nope.
Okay. Then we'll go down to item 3, agenda approval. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the board agenda?
I had one correction on new business letter B, the KVEC lease. Just after I had sent this out, I did talk to him, so I've updated that I heard from him and what he was looking at for the KVEC lease, so.
All right. We have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. There's a motion by Angela and a second by Heather. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Item 4, open forum. Rules for open forum. 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in an open forum. Brian, did anybody sign up for open forum? Okay. Does anyone wish to speak in open forum? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item 5, the consent agenda. Does anyone need anything pulled from the consent agenda and placed in the agenda for further discussion? And Brian?
No changes.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion by Leo and a second by Angela. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Okay. Item number 6 is the bills. If anybody has any questions on the bills, please state the page number and bill number. Does anybody have any questions on the bills? No? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Toby and a second by Heather. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 7, reports. First up is a German trip report. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if I snap. I'm gonna snap. I feel like I have in the past. So I'm here to get approval for a couple of things that are happening with the German classes that I have. Okay, we have a trip coming up. We do it every 2 years, and the next trip that we have is 2024, okay? And I'm looking to get board approval for the trip. I'm sorry, I did not make copies of all of this. I feel like if you do want any of these, I can send them to any of you electronically. That is not a problem at all.
Lisa, is it different than what you sent me?
No, it's the exact same thing I sent you.
They have it.
Oh, sweet. Okay, all right. Yes, so I'm just looking to get approval. We're leaving the 7th of June and we're coming back the 23rd of June of next summer. And it's the same company that we worked with in the past. We've always worked with CETA Tours, and they're the ones that help us organize it. And I'll be the tour leader this year. We alternate between the Mora teacher and myself. So this year is my year. And yeah, it's been something we've been doing since, I mean, forever. Since I've been teaching here, we've been taking these trips. So this is the one thing I'm looking for board approval on. And if you guys have like the outline in front of you, if you have any questions about it right now, I can answer any of them you might have, or how I go about fundraising or anything like that. I don't wanna take up too much of your time.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Lisa?
I know it's very close to like when school's actually done. We are leaving a little bit earlier than normal, June 7th. I'd like you take a look at that. I do know that there are still like state tournaments and stuff that are gonna be going on after that, but with this, we do school visits. We visit, a site visit to, okay, let me restate what I'm saying. We do family visits. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. We do family visits when we're there, and in order to make it work out with the school, and like they're taking their end of the year exams, a big deal for them, like major importance of them. And then we visit Austria, which still recognizes some of the religious holidays, and a lot of the areas might have places where we go to visit that are going to be closed because of the Feast of Corpus Christi. And so we have to like take all of those into account when we're figuring out the date of when we're going. So that's why we're leaving earlier, just saying, like, giving you that little piece of information. So kids will be aware that, like, if we go to state and track or golf or softball or baseball, like, then they have a hard decision that they have to make, trip or state.
Okay. All right, thank you, Lisa. Mrs. Hodina is looking for approval for out-of-state travel for the German trip for the 2023-24 school year. Does anybody have any other questions or discussion?
Mrs. Swedina, when was the last time we took a trip like that?
We do it every 2 years. The only time we didn't was during COVID.
Okay.
So we went in 2022, we didn't in 2020, 2018, 16, and yeah. And I've been leading trips. My first trip was 2008. Prior to that, my kids were too small, like my children. I couldn't leave them. Yeah, so I've gone 2008, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22.
How many kids did we have in 22? Do you think? More than 10?
Oh yeah. And when we went in 2018, we had so many kids that like every seat on the bus was full. We travel with Mora as well. So and I extend it out to the ITV kids that I have. So if I teach, any schools I teach to, once I get approval, this goes out to their schools. I send it to them. And then when I arrange meetings with the parents, then we set that up through ITV too. It's just, I just call the ITV people and I'm like, hey, make sure that, like the ITV thing is set up. So it's not just for Hinckley kids, it's for Hinckley and all the other schools that I teach to as well. And then, yeah, it's always either the Mora teacher is leading and then I'm like the co-leader, and like we bounce back and forth so that it's not always all the responsibility on one. I'm hopeful. I generally have at least 8 going pretty much as a rule.
Okay.
So we do fundraising, and then the other thing then I do have one more thing to talk about for in the fall as well, but I don't know if you would need to approve this first. Or...
Yeah, do the action item first and then.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve the German trip?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dave and a second by Heather. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, and then the second thing I want to talk to everyone about, well, you guys about, is we will be opening up our school again because we couldn't do this because of COVID prior, but we do an exchange with the school that we do the family stays with. So when we travel to Germany, around the city of Stuttgart is a town called Ludwigsburg, and we have like an exchange with that school. So when we go to Germany, we do the family stays and we stay in Ludwigsburg and we get to experience what the school is like there. The kids get to stay with the families there, and that's a really wonderful experience. But we reciprocate, right? And The last time we reciprocated was the fall of 2019, and so it pre-COVID, it was like they would come here, and then the following summer we would visit them, okay? This is the fall, that they'll be coming back this next fall, and so then I just want to let you guys know that that would be the next thing. Then I would be talking to the students that I have in class, and then they would need to open up their homes for the students when they come here. And that's generally a 2-week stay when they come here. And we, again, that is organized with Mora. Like any of the German trip stuff, it's Mora and Hinckley. Like we're the ones that do the work for that. So the students who come here from Ludwigsburg will be placed with families in Hinckley, and they will also be placed with families in Mora. And then it's, we organize activities for them. Like they go to Duluth, we spend time, like one year they did a tour of the US Bank Stadium. We have gone to the Audubon Center, which is now Osprey Wilds. And so like we provide activities for them to do when they're here. So that's coming up in the fall, and I gotta get my ducks in a row on that and make sure that like I have board approval for that, because then I need to start reaching out to the students that I have to see if they're willing to open up their home for a student that they could possibly be staying then at their home when we go back in the summer. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff happening. It's kind of exciting stuff. I just need to make sure I'm getting everything approved and, you know, going through the right paths and everything. So that's it. That's all I got to say on that. And I'll answer any questions that you guys have on that as well. Or
Great. Does anybody have any questions? No, but I think sounds awesome. I wish they did that back in the day when I was in high school, 80 years ago.
80? No. Okay. All right. So we're golden.
We're golden.
Sweet.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Next up, superintendent's reports. Go ahead, Brian.
Just note upcoming board committee meetings that are coming up this month. Scholarship committee already met as they're planning the scholarship dinner, and then a couple other board committee meetings coming up here in the next few weeks. Last month was asked to gather some more roof information. So I have this linked in from the information I've been able to find for this school year about the past summer roof projects. After seeing all those updates in one document, are there any further questions or things I can answer for the school board from the past summer's roof projects?
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have this month.
All right, thank you, Brian. Next up, we have Kim, high school principal's report.
Good evening. Not a lot on my agenda tonight, so we're busy kind of getting ready for graduation and all the fun things that happen at the end of the school year. So just a few updates for you this evening. First is just some attendance updates. Looking at the past few years, our attendance as of end of Q3 is at 90%, which is wonderful. We've really been working hard on getting kids to school. It's kind of been a big push this year, so we're proud of those numbers. The next thing is just our enrollments. We're at 420 students as of April 1st at the high school. Number 2 is registration. We're continuing to move forward with scheduling. We are still waiting from ECMEC to finalize numbers for students enrolled in ITD classes from other schools. So that's kind of like the next step that we're waiting on. Just an update for MCA testing. We did have to change the first day, April 20th of testing to the 18th. Due to we're having a bunch of guests in the building for band and choir event, so we didn't want to have a bunch of guests in the building while doing testing, so we're moving our reading date to the 18th versus the 20th. The next thing is science fair. So after months and months of discussion, research, talking to a lot of different people, getting your feedback, the science department and myself would like to move for a recommendation for the science fair for just this next school year. So what we would like to do is to have the science fair stay in 9th grade just as it has always been, and then try out an elective course for 10th through 12th grade instead of having it in all of the 10th grade classes. And so we would have to then add that elective to our subject matter for next year. So my recommendation along with our science department is to make that change for next school year. We will then update the board after next year with how things went, what we're also, any changes or things that are happening at the regional, state level, and then go from there. So this would just be a change for the next school year. So looking for a motion to add that science fair elective course to subject matters for next year.
Okay, Ms. Hinckley's looking for approval for the recommended change to the science fair. Any new questions or comments on this at all from anyone?
So what are the science classes right now for 10th grade?
As far as,
Is it just like biology, chemistry?
yes, it is. So 10th graders take biology.
So they could do biology and the science project elective?
Yes.
Is the elective just 1 quarter?
We are looking at it being a full year elective.
So they'd spend 1 year to work on their science project?
And they would be doing some other things as well. They would go in and help like mentor with the 9th graders. They would do some other type of projects, going in and doing some other types of things. They're kind of still working on all those like details, but it would be, they're looking at making it a year long because they have to go back and redo their projects for the different competitions. So it goes well into second semester.
Would that require additional staff?
No. We have the opening, Jeff Tyson has an opening, a section open to do the elective, so it would not be required, it would not take any more funding or staffing. We have the current staffing to do it.
I did talk to Mr. Jensen, and he's thought maybe it would be a better idea if you're gonna do it 1 year to do it 10th grade instead of the 9th grade, because as a 10th grader, you'd have a better handle on the scientific method than a 9th grader. So maybe doing a science project research paper might be a little bit more meaningful as a 10th grader as opposed to a 9th grader. Because it is a lot of work, it's a major task.
We decided to go with 9th grade due to the MCA testing in 10th grade.
Okay.
So that's the reason we picked that grade. Again, we're gonna try it next year, and if it doesn't work, we're happy to make changes going forward. This isn't a forever thing, it's just we wanna try it next year, see what happens and go from there.
So is there a number of students that you'd be looking for to determine that it's a success and this is how you want to continue for the next year following?
Yep, we will
test year?
we'll bring back data, we'll bring back what students are saying, registration, how it worked, the classes, all that information to the board, and then we'll have another discussion next year.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? So is there a motion to approve the science fair changes?
I'll make the motion.
Second it.
Could I just ask one other question?
Sure.
I know we discussed it at the last school board meeting, but I mean, there were a lot of comments made, but just getting down to the brass tacks, to boil it all down, what's the genesis of this change? I mean, this is a long-standing change. I mean, we've had this program, it's a long-standing tradition.
Yep. It's the amount of time that it takes to do it and the amount of requirements by the state as far as standards and things that have to get taught. And yes, there are some things that overlap, and the science fair absolutely does cover, but 2 full years of taking a big chunk of instruction time, almost a whole quarter, is a lot of instruction on a science fair, and I think it's a wonderful thing, it really is, but keeping it to 1 grade level, and again, if we see 9th graders, it would be better, more successful in 10th grade, we could talk about that, but I really think that with the amount of instruction that it takes up and what needs to get covered, especially with science being a testing subject, and unfortunately, that's just part of the requirements of MDE, it's something that we want to try and see if that really helps cover what we need to get covered next year.
How does the amount of instruction these days compare to when Mr. Grice and Mr. Jensen did it? Did you guys reach out and talk to them how much of their quarter they expended for science projects during class time?
No, I just read through their notes and stuff that they gave me, but I did not ask that question.
Part of their time, the MCA science tests are relatively new. I believe it was 2006 or 2008, I'd have to go back and look. So I did talk to Mr. Grice about that part, so that's part of it, is those science tests are relatively newer, comparatively speaking to the history of the science fair, so That's a part, you know, there's not the MCA data go back as far as the science fair, but, that's the part I know on that.
So what did you say, that we're doing more class time than?
I don't know that answer.
Okay. Maybe it's something that could be tweaked, so we use less class time, keep the science projects going for 10th graders?
I think it's become more class time because more kids are not doing it at home, so trying to get these kids through the test, or I mean, through the project is requiring more classroom time, where students are just not as dependent or have the means at home to get it completed. So the teachers have been spending historically more and more time getting kids to the finish line of the science fair, but that's why it's taking more time, is they're just not completing as much of the project outside of school.
And if this isn't just a Hinckley thing, this is happening in districts all over Minnesota, and so I know that the regional stuff is looking at making changes themselves to make it what it used to be, but it's kind of what it is everywhere. Everybody's making these changes. So we're not doing something, and I know we don't need to follow what everybody else does, but I think we need to really think about what's gonna be best for kids and what's gonna be best in order to meet requirements by MDE.
I just feel like our science projects, our science fairs, it's what set us apart from our other neighboring school districts. People have a choice where to send their kids, and, you know, if we wanna excel in science, I think having the science tradition, the science fairs, research papers, I think that sets us apart from East Central, from Pine City. And that's what Mr. Grice said, or Mr. Jensen said, it's one of those things that we can brag about that sets us apart. To draw students in and get customers in the door. Students are our customers. Maybe parents look for a school that's got a strong science program. Just saying.
Okay, well, we have a motion by Heather and a second by Leo for the science fair changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay.
Opposed.
Okay, Dave, you can do a roll call vote. Leo?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Toby?
No.
Shelley, myself, yes. Motion passes 5-1.
And last, we have an update from Ari and Jordan.
So I'll start. Spring sports are getting going here. Track had their indoor meet, and it doesn't look like they'll get one for a little bit, but the snow's melting. Baseball has their first games tomorrow at Gustavus, and softball probably coming up here. The softball and baseball fundraisers just started, in case anyone wants one.
How much are they, Jordan? Are they 20 or 25?
They're 25.
I have to walk home, so.
Prom is April 29th. It's being held at Docks and Sturgeon Lake. We're having a burger bar, and our theme is black and gold masquerade. So make your masks. I am tomorrow night, so if you come unprepared, it's gonna be embarrassing. No one else is doing it. Easter was good, Easter break, and now students are looking forward to summer and the next 7 weeks full of 5 days. It's gonna be a long one, but we're here for it. Just want to be done. And then the DC trip went okay. We did not lose any of the 70 students, and we all made it back relatively safely. Very few casualties.
Thank you. Any other questions for me on my report tonight?
Does anybody have anything else? Thanks, Kim. All right, next up we have the elementary principal's report.
Yeah, usually I have to follow Kim, but now I have to follow her. Good luck with that. I don't have nothing to sell, so, sorry, Jordan. It is MCA, testing time, so, Wednesday, our HES 5th graders will take their science test. You'll see the little, placard in there. That's one thing that we are trying to do this year, is really emphasize that these kids can do this, the importance of the test. We had an assembly down at Hinckley, to really go over that we can master, we are capable, and we will achieve if they put their minds to it. So you'll see those hanging throughout Finlayson as well as Hinckley. You can see the testing dates in there. Fundraising, I think, really went well throughout our schools this year. HS did an additional candy bar sale. FES does the candy bar sale through PTO. That brought a lot of money in, and the kids are seeing the value of it. We did a PBIS reward day today where we took over 320 kids bowling at Temple Sandstone. So if you're wondering where my headache came from, that is exactly that. I was there all day. But they're seeing the importance of being able to do some of those fundraisers so we can do those things and celebrate their successes. So really the big discussion item I have for you would be pre-K at FES. We are slated this year to have, next year to have 4 half days. That would be combined with kindergarten. We did that, so we did the half days so kindergarten would have time to focus on just having kindergarten in there. I've had conversations with the staff, and so some of them are here if you have questions for them. The concern that came forward, I know you all received a letter from the FES staff in regards to how do we build a program here, feeling like the kids go to preschool here, they'll stay here. Our neighboring districts, East Central has 4 days a week. Willow River has 4 days a week. However, Willow River has a sliding fee scale that they pay on. So kind of looking at what you want to do, what are you willing to, I know we don't have any 3-year-olds involved in the 4-year-old program this year, so we don't have any slated to start in the fall. I know Brian just sent out an email saying we're $300,000 to $400,000 like over budget right now. So what are you wanting to do? What are your thoughts?
I'd like to see our expand the pre-K here.
Okay.
And I talked to Brian about today. I don't know if he talked to you.
I was bowling all day.
Pardon me?
I was bowling all day.
Okay. About combining kindergarten and pre in one class, one teacher. You'd have to put a limit on it, but there would be no, in my opinion, be no extra cost to the school district if you could do that.
So combining pre-K and K and making it 4 full days.
Well, I need to go for 5.
Well, I would like to leave that what we're doing in Hinckley.
Okay.
So I'll throw that out. We have a 3-year-old program because that's where we pique their interest, right? Is getting them. So they come in currently, they'd be looking at the Wednesday class.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe is it okay time to get some feedback in regards to combining pre-K and K all day from you guys? I know that's kind of on the spot, so. Stop talking.
They go 4 full days in Hinckley?
4 full days in Hinckley. And Wednesdays would be the 3-year-old program.
Okay. I think I'm only gonna speak for myself personally, but one thing that we're talking every day about, what would this look like, what would that look like? It looks like we have a lower number of 4-year-olds coming in next year, but there's a lot of 3s coming behind them. So we talked about if we were able to keep preschool separate so that kindergarten can combine with me for part of the time in the afternoon, which still leaves some access time. We talked about that a little bit. If pre-K stayed separate and 4-year-olds came 4 days a week, taking the 3-year-olds and splitting them. And so half of the 3-year-olds would come, say, Monday and Thursday, half of them would come Tuesday and Friday. So 3-year-olds would be getting 2 days a week, 4-year-olds would be getting 4 days a week. And it would give them socialization time with kids that are in the same developmental range, the same academics, the same area.
Where do you get the numbers from for the 3-year-olds coming behind?
Looking at the census, we've looked through on the census who's coming up in that range, looking at siblings of kids that are already here. And did we find 10, 11, 12 3-year-olds the following year? And so if we can bring them in part-time to hopefully get them again the following year, because when 3-year-old programs again are offered in other areas. It's, like you said, in Hinckley, it's used as a feeder program, well, if they're going somewhere else as a 3, are we already losing them? I guess that's what I see as a
So-
perfect scenario.
Did I hear you say it's additional staff?
It would be keeping our existing staff, but giving the pre-K program 4 days a week, the same that Hinckley has 4 days a week. So I guess it would be more time with preschool staff up here.
So what she's saying, right now, Katie Dixon does 3 days in Hinckley this year, 2 days up here. We're pushing that to 4 days a week. We are capped out. The state max is 20 kids per classroom with a para in there, so we are maxed out at Hinckley, and we've actually turned kids away. We did offer Finlayson, and that wasn't a choice that they made. We did lose, we get about $41,150 from the state for pathways. That's for kids who fall under that free and reduced qualifications. Everything else is, well, Bridget's been the early childhood coordinator for a number of years, so do you wanna talk a little bit about the funding source of what that looks like?
So the state is giving us, I don't know what number per pupil, but it's calculated out. So we get a 0.6 ADM if we hit 510 hours, which we do in our full day program. They calculate it based on the kindergarten enrollment. So I don't know if that dipped down, but we're gonna lose 7 seats next year too. So we are gonna lose a little bit of funding in preschool. So, and the pathway money is just to help recoup some of the cost.
For those kids that qualify for free and reduced. Like Bridget said, it's based on, we get 0.6%, so we get 6%, 60% of the ADM, which is average daily membership. Looking at our, form, we lost some seats, and it goes off the census, so I don't know how they pull the census information versus what you guys have.
The kindergarten enrollment, they go on the current kindergarten year.
Okay, and I know back when I was coordinator, we used to get a census from Community Ed, and it gave me every child that was born in our area all the way until 2 months ago when they were born. And so that's the data that we always use to send out letters to next year's preschoolers. And I don't know if that list still exists or not.
I've
But I
asked her.
think
That's how
Do
I
you get anything through community ed, as far as you know? Yeah, we've tried to pull the census even for our Hinckley kids to say like, start making calls and stuff, and we don't have it, so I don't.
Well, that's how I found the 12 names, was on the census. Like I went and found the Finlayson addresses. There's a way to do it.
They used to come from Community Ed. Krista always used to give it to me, and I don't know how she did it. She would just hand me pages of, and we literally made phone calls and sent letters. So that was where we used to get our data from, who was coming up the following year.
Okay. So Leo, you're asking for that to be combined with kindergarten,
And that's just,
just an idea to not add staff.
right, and get the kids in here so we keep
Yep.
them here.
And I do understand the importance of that. And that's why I was looking at half days, cause I also understand the difficulty of balancing kindergarten and pre-K together. And so if we did half days, I understand we're adding more to parents to come and get them, but it would give kindergarten time to.
So the 4 days makes sense
Yeah.
if we went that route, but.
Question, oh, sorry, go ahead. Does changing the bus route, the boundary to Happy's Drive, does that affect
Was it
any?
Not
about
much.
4 or 5 kids? And I can't remember the breakdown for
I would
pre-K
almost
and
even
kindergarten.
say 2, because we gave the caveat of if they have an older child in Hinckley that they can choose to stay, and I think that's gonna be a barrier.
It will long-term hopefully,
Yes,
but for
long
next,
term it will
for
impact
next
a little bit
year,
more.
it was two kids, it
It's- yeah.
sounds like.
I think it's
Open
gonna
en-
take about 6 years before. we
Open
see it.
enrollment, it's too early to tell, cause that was part of that move we made last month too, but open enrollment applications haven't really started coming in yet. At least not that I've heard is making a big difference. But it might be a little too early for that.
Can I ask one question, Brett? If we start hauling 3-year-olds, are we gonna be hauling them on the bus?
No, 3-year-olds don't ride the bus right now, whether or not.
Cause we have 4-year-olds now that every one of them should have a seat, and they don't.
Where do you haul them, George, on the road?
I'm on all the news.
Well,
Every one of them should have
like a harness.
a booster seat with a harness.
We don't currently transport 3-year-olds, and I don't see us changing that.
I got three 4-year-olds, they are holding tears on the bus. They don't
And
listen.
that's something we can look at during programming of talking
I'm just asking.
expectations. Yeah, we don't, I'm not currently proposing to haul 3-year-olds, no.
I was just asking.
Okay,
So, at our facilities meeting that we had here, she mentioned you can do up to 2.5 hours as a after school. Could those 2.5 hours be done from noon to 2:30? So they'd have lunch so it would be a half day preschool, and then it would be an after school.
And that would
Would
be,
just,
after the
cause then it would
preschool
just be a
school day.
para.
and
It
that
would be a
We
para
have-
that
we
would
have
be
the same.
needed in the room instead
Yes,
of.
is
What's
that
our
what you're
Susie?
looking for though, or you're looking for the programming, the all-day programming?
Well, I think it can be set up in a way so that during that after-school care, they're still getting exposure to academic
Right.
activities.
Licensed teacher.
and that could be,
Para direction.
My question would be, would parents then have to pay for that?
yeah, I mean, at least the model we've seen, that's a fee-based program. At least that's what, when we'll get to the facilities committee meeting, that's what we were talked about there, is that after-school component hopefully pays for itself, depending on how many kids you have with a fee-based program, and that's usually run out of community ed, at least that's what other schools do, so
But I'm talking just for the preschool, not an after-school program, just so we can keep it as an all-day, but it's not a teacher.
So we don't
that's
run it
running
as a half day, we run it as a
It's a
Oh,
full
okay.
day,
full
but
day,
it's a
half of it spent with
para-supervising.
kindergarten.
It's a para-supervising the
Right.
second part of the day.
Yes.
And
Yes.
here is their para time
Yep.
that we currently have that could be used for that.
It would probably be still adding a para, but
And we were
I
told
think
we
that's
would add a
doable.
para anyways, if K and pre-K were gonna be combined, that grade was good with a para. So then that could be allocated to the afternoon to them, and the K teacher would be on her own.
And
I don't know what that looks like for the 3-year-old program, I don't know if I've wrapped my head around kind of what your concept was thinking, but
It's just another brainstorm.
yeah,
I mean,
like,
I don't know.
well, that's what we need
Yeah.
ideas, but
Those
There-
ones that were turned away at HES, were they presented here as a half a day?
no, it was for this current year that we're in. So it would have been the 2 days, 2 days a week up here now.
Okay.
So, Angela, in your scenario, my concern would be if they can come here for 4 half days of preschool, and they have after program care, but they need to pay for it, we're once again different than Hinckley Elementary, East Central, and Willow,
I
because.
think I misspoke, I think,
No, I'm
She's saying no.
I'm saying
Angela and I were talking about two different
Yeah.
things, I was thinking that something
Cause we
different.
also talked about
An
an
after
after,
school,
true
Yeah.
after,
A true after.
true
We're
after
just
school
really
program.
looking for, let's offer the same as other districts so that people can look at us as I can go there and get the same education for my child versus if I go to FES, I'm getting half an education for my preschool child versus these 3 preschools. A lot of parents are going to choose, I'm gonna go somewhere else where I can get twice the educational time. I think that's what we're looking for, is just to balance with what the other, especially our own other elementary program offers. We're wanting to be on the same page so that we don't lose people because we have half the time. That's what we're hoping for.
Forgive this question, why is it 4 days and not 5? I mean, if I was a parent and I was bringing my child in, what do I do with the 5th day? Would that be an advantage of us to go to 5 days with it, or is that too
Well,
much
we
for
do
that age?
the
Or
4-day-a-week right now, cause that's the only space we have to do the feeder program or the 3-year-old program. In Hinckley, we don't have an additional space where we have to clear those rooms and bring 3-year-olds in. I think it's not advantageous for us to have a 1-day-a-week 3-year-old program either, but that's the space we have, so.
So could you do 5 days up here? Would that be a competitive advantage with the other school districts?
Not
I
if
don't
we
know
want.
why.
I think East Central is 4 days a week. Willow might be 5 on they have a pay base that's on a sliding fee scale, but,
Would that be
I
an
don't think you
advantage
can do it without adding staff, I can say that.
Yeah.
I know currently, right now, what we've done for the last few years is the 4s and 3s combined together. And part of that was because we had such low numbers, so it was having 2 kids as 4-year-olds and 2 kids as 3-year-olds was really, really difficult to run a class. So we combined those.
Historically, 1 day a week has been left open for early childhood classes, where
Yep.
the parents come with their kids.
Yep.
And so if we're full-time 5 days a week, then we don't have room for those parents to come in with the younger kids. I can only speak for when I was there years ago, I don't know, but we need time for early childhood classes.
And it's pretty, the ECFE classes are going really well right now, so.
In both locations.
Both locations, right now, Finlayson has an average of 5 to 6, like you said.
I guess I would like to see us look into having it match Hinckley Elementary. I think that's, I mean, we have to try something. So
as long as you guys support, like I said, Brian sent the email saying we have to cut, and it's.
Yeah.
I just have to be able to justify to my HES teachers of like, we're paying the same amount for less capacity. You're absolutely right, we're trying to build a program, and I 100% support that. It's just, if I have your backing, then at least it's not me doing it, it's you. So when Brian sends the budget cuts, I'm gonna forward my emails to you. So are you in support of like sharing that with Kay and then adding a para and making it all day?
whatever we can fiscally make happen, that.
Read Brian's email.
I know, like, whatever we can.
What if we're turning them away at Hinckley? I mean, if we can offer.
My only concern is if we start this, what if we only get 2 kids out of the get-go? You know what I mean? I definitely wanna build it up, I want a lot of students come here, my kids went here and they absolutely loved it, and I loved it as a parent. So I just think there's some misconceptions in the public about having to combine classes. And that's, I think, is also kind of maybe why they're choosing other districts, which I think is unfortunate, because I think it's more of kind of almost like a private education, because you have more one-on-one time with our educators.
The ratio is very low.
Am I allowed to speak to that?
Go ahead.
You know.
Yep.
Shelley, I think that was why we kind of started troubleshooting inviting 3-year-olds, because Finlayson, when you look, our numbers kind of go like this, back and forth. We've got a small group. I've got 2 grades right now, one of them has 3 and one of them has 11. So if we look at combining 3s and 4s in Finlayson, that would help balance out. This is a really low year for 4-year-olds, but next year is a bigger year, so we can have those kids work together. Does that make sense? Because we are gonna have years that there aren't many kids. There just aren't many kids out there that are that age. But the year coming behind might have more. So if we can combine those 2 age levels here, and 3s don't need to come every day, but it would help give them socialization. It would help make a more full class for those years that we do have very few kids in the area.
And we can start making those connections with parents so they understand, because to read on the website that it's a combined homeroom is really confusing. We've been trying to troubleshoot that problem ourselves all year too, like trying to plan some open houses so we can explain how the model works. I mean, it's 1 and 2 are in the same homeroom, but first grade gets all their first grade state standard content separately from second graders, and that's just something people don't know if you're not familiar with the education system.
Exactly.
So educating people too is a huge part right now that we're trying to troubleshoot as well. It is a perk once they understand how it works.
Oh, definitely. I loved it as a parent.
I think we'll probably have to problem solve a little bit more on the 3s and 4s, because I think it'd be difficult to have a K 3 and 4 classroom. I know you said not to come every day, but I think we can talk more about that. But if you guys are in support of me moving forward with trying to equal that out and don't mind spending the money to do that. Did you hear it, Brian? Go ahead.
I hear it.
I'm gonna forward my emails I get from Brian to you guys. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that input. Thank you, ladies, Bridget, for coming tonight. Starbase, it's a great experience. It is a very costly experience, and it's all because of transportation and going 5 days back and forth to Duluth. One of the things we're looking at is trying to build something very similar that's on site. We have the ability to do so with Mr. Greenwald, who's been part of Starbase for a number of years before coming here. And then maybe look at an additional prep program for, Wolf Ridge, something that our, sixth graders did. It's called, Base Camp down in the cities, going to that 1 day versus 5 days up at Wolf Ridge, or at, Starbase. So something we're looking forward to. Field days are in preparation right now, and like I talked about was PBIS and responsive classroom, still working on, Finlayson does not do pause tickets, they, chose not to be part of that, so and that's just fine, cause what they have is, with small numbers, is they use responsive classroom pretty significantly. We've had over 905 tickets handed out in Hinckley versus the 450 at this time last year, so our teachers, our staff are working really hard to recognize those positive behaviors, and then what it results in, those kids that didn't get referrals this quarter, today was that reward day for that, and we try and do something every quarter, so, it's kind of what we have at the elementaries.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments for Bonnie? Okay, thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Alright, next up, the facilities report and the facilities committee report. Go ahead, Keith.
Hello. Just a few things here at the high school. Rooftop unit 1, which is located in the center of the building, which heat and cools the science area. We had a pump malfunction on it, which caused the heat exchanger to expose a leak. We repaired the pump malfunction, but then after that we noticed glycol in the ceiling tiles, and I called out Craft Mechanical, and we assessed that the heat exchanger itself had a pinhole leak in. But being that the unit itself, the RTU is 13 years old, that would take at least 8 to 10 weeks for it to come. I just made the decision to order it because if we didn't order it, the other option would have been pulling the unit off the roof and putting up a temporary one if it were to get worse. So as of now, it hasn't got any worse. It's still holding its own. There's a slow leak, but it evaporates before it causes any damage, and really hasn't dropped the boiler pressure up all that much. And then last week here at Finlayson, Bruce found another leak in a heat exchanger, which is nowhere near, it's not gonna be even close to as expensive. I just figured I'd bring it to your attention. The leak itself, same thing, it's barely leaking, it's barely making a flow drain. The water recovers itself. And I talked to Craft Mechanical to come out and look at that. I called them last week, and I believe they're probably gonna come out Wednesday of this week to assess it. That one they might be able to pull it out and braze it, and that may repair the leak. I'm not sure yet, we have to wait for them to come out here. And then the disposals that were supposed to be put in a while ago will be completed in the summertime, because you can't really do it when the kitchen's going, and because it takes them about six hours to put one in. So they're gonna complete that at the high school and the elementary this summer. There's a solar project. I'm learning on that one, so I reached out to Eric, but I have no response on that, so I don't know start dates or anything like that. They haven't really
we were waiting to hear from the state, working with Minnesota Power. If you remember back to last year, we were talking about adding more solar panels at the high school and Hinckley Elementary, but the applications, things like that are through. Now we're waiting for the state to release the funding and stuff and the snow to melt, but.
Well, it's clear, I went up there today, it's working. There's actually, you can see them. And then when we were looking into getting a new dive board for the pool area, I had like a Horizon pool come out to measure, just so we get the right size for the pool. And after measuring, they found out that the pool can no longer support the diving board because the Minnesota Department of Health, or Minnesota Pool Association, new code requirements for diving boards has changed. So it's not deep enough, long enough. It's deep, but not deep enough in a long period of time. It has to be another 1.5 feet at that depth. So we could not put a pool diving board in there. being that my name's on that pool, if somebody were to get hurt, then I would be liable for that, so. And just a small leak at the Empower building, I think it was due to ice dams, but we're gonna have to tear into the ceiling a little bit and figure out. Right now, I don't know if that's gonna be a major issue or not, but we have to tear into it. I think doing what they have on the east side with that heat tape should solve the problem. I think that was the cause of it, cause there's heat tape on the east side, but not the west side, and there was ice dams, and we just don't know the extent of the damage right now. And, on the lawnmower, being that we can't, I mean, the price too of a new lawnmower, I think it was like $24,000. I contacted Stan's and, Minnesota Power. Sandy, Stan's was, the lawnmower would be $2,400 for the summer. Looking for a 72, but they weren't too sure on that. And both of them, and then Minnesota Power was 36, and they both offer the same. They're both covered under warranty. They both pick them up and drop them off, and they both are brand new mowers. Every year you get a brand new mower, and they take it back. I don't know if that'd be something for in the future instead of purchasing a brand new mower. You know, because I'm sure that price, because they couldn't get the one we wanted from Minnesota Equipment, and they promised me that the price wouldn't go down for next year, so. But it won't stay the same, so.
And we're gonna talk a little bit more about the lawnmower when we get to the capital budget too.
Thank you, Keith.
Yep, you're welcome.
And then I'll help Keith with the facilities meeting. So the facilities committee met on March 15th. We went over at that time what the capital budget looked like. But the big part, we met with some people from Pine County to talk about if Finlayson could take on adding some daycare. Now I know we've just talked about some pre-K things, but some notes from that meeting. We did tour FES. What they told us is if we wanted to add daycare space, we would need about 35 square feet per student. Infants require a staff to student ratio of 1 to 4. Toddlers is 1 to 7, and then school age kids are 1 to 15. The toilet ratio, because that is a factor as well, would need to be 1 to 15. We learned that infants would need also on top of their own place, but their own changing space as well as a hand washing station. This building would be required to have a food prep area. Our kitchen would qualify and work for that. To get staff members, the credentialing is a 2-year degree plus 2,500 hours of child care experience. A lot of times, if they've been a parent, some of those can work, but they need some of that youth experience. We talked a little bit in Bonnie's report about after-school programming. There is after-school daycare type programming that we could do after the day that is fee-based. That if we ran under 2.5 hours, we could have a paraprofessional, no matter, kind of one of our own paraprofessionals do that. If we ran like a daycare after-school program that was over 2.5 hours, that person would then need to follow the full credentials that I mentioned just a little bit ago. We were told infant program is very much sought after. We were also told, when we started talking about costs, things like that for startup, that even though, a lot of the kids would eat school food, things like that, each room, each space would need to have its own plan for snacks, food in case families don't bring in food, things like that. If we ran a preschool program, we'd be just fine running the school meals and breakfasts. At that time, we looked at, is it possible for FES to take on adding an infant room and a 3 and 4-year-old room? When kind of talking about those costs, again, depending on how many kids signed up, startup costs initially would be about $70,000 to $120,000 to do that. There was some other board members there, Kim and Bonnie, Keith was there. I don't know if you guys want to add to anything from your perspective on that meeting. Sounds like if the school wanted to go forward with having a daycare option, sounds like the licensing piece is, I think they said 6 months for us, Hinckley-Finlayson, to get licensed. It's not just a quick, but you have to have kind of your plans in place, your staffing, things like that. But I don't know, Dave, Angela, Leo, Kim, Bonnie, Keith, you guys were at the meeting too. Anything that in my short summary I missed or that you want to add to?
Well, I wanted you to stress that it's, you charge for daycare, so, that 70 to 120 is a one-time expense startup. Eventually you recover that, plus we have more students starting probably. It kinda fits in with, 3 and 4-year-olds. Mom drops the infant off and the 4-year-old, and that just kinda helps build those numbers. It's like an investment, it's not necessarily gonna return right away. Takes a while to get the ball rolling, get people to catch on to it, but I think it would go very well. It would go very well hand in hand.
What we talked about as far as spacing, we'd have to cut 3rd and 4th in half, which would be fine, cause they have plenty of room. Everything kinda transitions down in the daycare. Would probably have to go in that kindergarten room.
We talked
So
about
we-
the music room too.
Yeah, the music room, I mean,
There
what's
is a
that, there's,
there's a
one
bathroom.
stall bathroom in the kindergarten room.
We can move everybody down.
Yep, so kindergarten would go there, Shayna would go
And then we'd have
probably in the other half of Chris's room. Jason's staying where he's at, or else the music room, Davey, like you talked about was, I mean, I guess the problem I see with that, if we're trying to build our numbers up and they get to that point again, then what do we do? Do we look at an outside building or something like that? Cause eventually, our hope is that we would have to need and demand the space that we have here. That was one of the things we talked about.
And I think towards the ending of the discussion, maybe not doing infant and toddler, cause it requires so much more, but keeping it is it 36 months? Yeah. And up, and doing in just this room. And there are grants available that could maybe cover half the cost.
Is that from Leslie? That
No, it's one I sent to her.
different one, okay.
There's 2 grants available, one is for startup costs. So, I mean, there could be some funding out there.
So to affect that 70 to 120.
Right.
Okay.
Cause the grant that's out there is not for planning, it's for implementation.
So I'm thinking about is if we're moving kindergarten to Shayna's current room, there is no bathroom, there is no, I mean, if you're gonna have kindergarten and pre-K in one room, it's gonna be a little bit, it could present a barrier.
I mean, our preschool here now doesn't have a bathroom,
It doesn't.
so I mean, it's a barrier, but it's one they already work around here, yeah.
Angela Reiser was talking about how the state will really kind of work with you if you have a para that's maybe doesn't have the whole 1 year of education or requirements that they would, if you're working towards it, they kind of back off a bit. So maybe that's, do it and see if you get caught, I guess. What can they do? Have all those mothers after them. With the infants.
One other thing that came up is, and one of the reasons they were looking at the music room more so than here was the safety of the traffic of people. If they went with the music room, they would have their own entrance and they could just stay there. However, if they were using the kindergarten room, Susie would have to let them in, and then we have those parents, we have that all-day traffic. So that was something else that was talked about. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of things that came up during that conversation. So I know that was one of them too, was the traffic in and out. If parents are picking them up at 11:30 in the morning, or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, what does that do to traffic in and out of the school? So.
Did we used to have like an outside classroom for music or something? Cause I remember I thought
Yes, they used to, long time ago.
Yeah,
Long time ago.
When I brought my kids for the easy, I thought we were down there actually.
We used to have that orange building that's currently down at Hinckley. I have no idea what's in it.
Storage.
Actually, they used to be, that's where I went to kindergarten before the school was built. And then we used to have music in it.
Oh.
Yeah, we used to have a music room outside.
Was that here or across the street?
It was originally across the street, but then when we built this, it came over here and we had band in it. Long time ago.
Dave, are there any school districts nearby that have a daycare, and if so, how are they doing financially with their daycare?
Well, that's kind of something we're trying to explore. Talked to somebody about Bemidji, Angela, we're thinking about going down to St. Francis, find out how they do it. What's the business plan?
Theirs runs year round, and it's a very successful.
Yeah, there was one we talked with before, a year ago.
Sock Center or something like that?
What's that?
Was Sock Center that had one? Is that the year-round one? Cause we talked about it year-round too. We can't get teachers to teach, summer school right now, so I can see that being a problem for year-round. And then we also talked about the maintenance year-round, how staffing cleans their own daycare.
Or immediate.
Well, to find out how other daycares do it.
Yep.
Cause it's a year-round thing.
Are they ran in their school building?
St. Francis is,
yeah.
and it's year round, and their summer is their busiest time.
For sure.
They go up to 5th grade, I think, they will take older ones.
We just talked to Sarah Lovar, how's that from? She now lives in the Bemidji area and teaches kindergarten for the last, I think she said 12 years, and they have a daycare, and I kinda looked online, and she said it is incredibly popular. It is just, I don't know what we do without it. So, that didn't give us any information on how to run it and apply it and all that, but it's, you know, a demonstration of how vital it is and how it's just depended on and works all the time.
Could space be leased out to a private enterprise that has pre-existing licensing and daycare?
That's an option, sure.
We did talk about that
Yeah.
one too.
The lady we met with didn't think of anyone off the top of her head that might be interested, but it is an option.
What about that business in Sandstone, if they want to expand?
They did sound like they did, but.
Okay.
I mean, we are, so there's a group of us with Pine County and some city administrators in Hinckley are looking at spaces in Hinckley as well. It's not like we're just looking at this building. There's spaces that we're trying to find in Hinckley, to do with somebody or partner or however we do it, but there's just a need in both communities, well, the whole area.
That next meeting,
everywhere.
and I think that next meeting with the county people who are helping is hopefully before we get, for sure, to the May board meeting, maybe even before our work session that I'm gonna propose here in a little bit, but so maybe we get a little more information from there too.
I mean, there's some good ideas being tossed around, but nothing that I don't.
Not sure, someone you can talk to is Lakes and Pines and talk about early Head Start and Head Start. Maybe they want to team up or partner too. 'Cause they
Early
do
Head Start and
regular Head Start.
Okay.
So early Head Start starts at 6 months, goes to 3, and then regular Head Start is from 3 to through 5.
All right, is there anything else you wanted to?
nothing for me. I don't know if Keith had anything else.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Keith or Brian?
So Keith, the diving board is removed at this time then?
Yes. And there will be not one taking his place.
All right, next up, item 7F, technology reports. Jessica, that's you.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Snell, the Technology Director here at Hinckley-Finlayson Schools. I've been here since July of 2020. This is my first report, so I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm going to be updating you on the technology department and what it's been doing throughout the year and future projects as well. Please feel free to ask questions. I generally talk fast and occasionally will use jargon, so questions are encouraged. The technology department has been very busy at Hinckley-Finlayson. We've had a very busy year. I personally have been learning the network and the environment and hopefully making some progress with staff and students. Some major projects and tasks that we've completed through this year, but are not limited to. I adjusted the district door bells to ring independently of one another. They were ringing simultaneously and driving both front staff a lot of pain, so those now run independently. I've moved some physical servers from like an actual physical server to a virtual environment at ECMEC, so that reduced license costs and helped some risk. So if they do automatic backups and they're off-site, so it's more of a safety concern for our environment that those live off-site. I also worked on the Child Online Privacy Plan that was released in spring. And that is a full inventory of every website and application used by our teachers and accessed by our students. So we have that available to parents and staff and students so that they know what is being asked of them when they log into those sites. I also implemented some changes for online cybersecurity. The first one being password changes based on frequency of 90 days. That's brand new for all staff. I run updates on servers on a weekly basis to reduce malware and ransom attacks. I've removed student access from replying to email groups because I was in those groups and I did not like the conversations that they were having. I also have InfoSec email phishing training for all staff, which has been fun. We also set up a new management software, which is MDM Mosel. And what that does is it kind of manages all of our iPads. We were using a different software, and when I came on, they had purchased a new one. So we set that up this summer, and we've been using that. It's been a fun learning curve for everyone that has used it. We also implemented eHall Pass with the help of Kim and her team, and that's been pretty successful at the high school. Some of our daily tasks include student device repair, staff technology issues, printing, phone issues, projectors not connecting, updates needing to be run, adding applications to computers, email, errors, distributions, helping people connect to their computers. We set up some WIDA testing at the elementary in the computer lab. Some projects that we look forward to having this summer and year. We'll be doing the FAC sound upgrade, hopefully. Domain controller upgrade and replacement. We'll be changing some Wi-Fi passwords and how you access them this summer, hopefully. And currently we're working on the school website to be ADA compliant. That is a full-time job and taking a lot of resources. The technology department works with staff and students to create a fun and safe learning environment, and we look forward to showing staff and students what technology can do.
Sounds like you've been busy.
It's been fun.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jessica?
I just got a comment. The feedback I've got on your job has been wonderful. Your coworkers, you're available, you do the work. Everything I've heard has been positive, so keep up the good work.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? All right, then next up, board committee reports. Does any board members want to present how many committees they've had recently? Well, I know I did the retention and communication. A few things we discussed. I talked about the book bingo. They said there's about 80 plus kids that had attended. That went well. The math night, literacy night was postponed. Has that happened yet?
Don't schedule it again, because then it'll snow.
Seems to snow or ice every time.
We talked about ways to improve the school webpage. And also discussed, which I think is really good, having school board members observe classrooms at all 4 buildings, include Empower as well, I think is really good. Inviting community groups to like a fall workshop for new staff, hopefully for ways for them to be more involved in the community and stuff. And some retention events, each building plans an activity, it's open to all district employees and board members as well. And Brian, you were at the meeting, and Bonnie and Shayna, I don't know if you guys have anything you wanted to add? No? Okay. Anybody else want to speak on teaching and learning? Is there anything? And we already discussed the facilities, I think.
Yep.
Pretty much, so. Okay, moving on, item number 8, communications. Is there any communications?
There was not
at all?
any this month.
Okay, alright. Item number 9, budget items. Is there any information you wanna highlight regarding budget items or unfinished business?
Yep, I'll have a few action items here as we go through budget and unfinished business. Right now, as far as building next year's budget and things like that, the principals are gonna wrap up and give me their classroom material budgets. All managers have given me their budgets, and they and I are going through that and looking at, what was requested, what is needed, things like that. And then it gets to Joanne to get into the budget for next year, but those are coming along. Joanne says we're a little bit ahead of time on that, so that's good news. And a lot of the managers, a lot of the teachers did a very good job in their budgeting, and a lot of the requests were down compared to last year. So that's looking good as far as materials and things, that don't go right into the teaching or staffing of the building. A big action the school board takes, typically in April, is approving our 23-24 capital budget. So I'm gonna move to that. As Bonnie alluded, and it's coming a little further here, when I go through the revenue projections, we are projected to be having less revenue coming into the district than we were last year. So I started with the capital budget. Are there things, in looking at the way our COVID plan was written, things like that, are the things that we could move or move to tier 2 and kind of wait? Keith talked a little bit about the lawnmower piece, and we talked about it last month. It looks like we have a lawnmower lease option of either $2,400 or $3,600. When I made this agenda public, the kind of number Keith and I threw, we didn't know the specific numbers yet, so we put in 3,000. But we'd like to go forward with the lease option. It saves us about $20,000 from what was approved last month. So if you choose to approve the capital budget, it would be with the change of the lawnmower lease. Some other things, if you move to the technology budget, the things that Jess has been talking about all year are still in there, but we have the learning loss money is specifically written in a way that it has to be spent on ways to help students with learning loss and things like that. That money can't be earmarked and saved for other things. So we are able to take the replacement devices and iPads and help do that, since they'll be used in summer school with learning recovery, things like that. So we're able to move those 2 line items to learning loss money. And the way our ESSER COVID plan was written was some FAC sound system upgrades, FAC upgrades, things like that. So we're able to move that sound system from the capital budget to being used in our already pre-approved ESSER plan. So that those highlighted areas are in the list, so we know that we'd be approving getting those things, but those 3 highlighted line areas are taken off the total capital budget. So if I move to the bottom after the bus materials, the total capital budget with all the materials is about $450,372. But what would actually be spent with district funds would be I shouldn't say district funds, with non-ESSER COVID related funds would be $376,909, which we get for capital expenses from the state about $250,000. So, which is about the same as we got last year. So total, our capital budget compared to last year's numbers, we're saving about $80,000, which is a good savings, and still being able to get most of the things that Jessica, Keith, and Sarah Beckrich have asked for or requested. So I'm looking for approval for the capital budget with moving to a lease option for the lawnmower.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or discussion for Brian regarding the capital budget?
Can I just ask a question a little more? Where does that get used at? Is that the elementary or the fields?
Yeah, baseball fields.
Yeah.
Football field too?
Football fields, elementary.
Yep.
Okay.
High school, Hinckley Elementary, and all the fields.
Yeah.
So
Baseball.
we just have the one lawnmower that does all,
Correct.
okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
We have one or two, we bought one last year, and if we lease one, when we have two?
The one we bought last year was more of a tractor for sidewalk
Okay.
sweeping, and it was listed as a lawnmower, but
Okay.
it was more of a tractor that they
Okay.
use for sweeping sidewalks, and I'm sure other
Yeah,
that's where I've
snowboard,
seen
yeah,
it quite a bit
snowboard too,
this year.
Yeah.
Maybe
Miniature
a little
salter
this
on the back.
Have we looked at having an outside company for our snow plowing, or somebody else do it?
For maintenance,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever been looked to or not.
I mean, by the time you figure you're paying somebody to mow all of these, plus the cost and the expense of having a lawnmower, is it something worth looking at, having a service do it versus? I don't know, just.
Yeah, I don't know what that would
Well, I
cost.
think for the hours that he would put on there, buying a server would be actually probably more expensive than just,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't,
yeah.
I was just throwing it out there.
Cause I mean, they were probably working at $65 to $80 an hour, you know.
Thank you.
Alright, anybody else?
What's the cost of a new lawnmower?
Cost of a new lawnmower as of this week was about $24,000, yeah.
What you had last month was $23,885.
Plus, I imagine you're gonna add some maintenance in that if you keep it 10 years.
The one I believe now is from 2005.
Correct.
So, and that one, the value is 2,500 for a trade-in, which,
We would still do that, trade that in or, follow those, so it would kind of pay for the lease almost, that trade-in of our current lawnmower. Mostly paid for.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the capital budget as presented?
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Leo, second by Dave. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Next
The-
up, oh, sorry.
I'm still in that
Oh, you're
topic.
still- sorry.
Next is, school board goals. I have, the admin teams worked with feedback from the school board for the last month or so on, proposed 2023-24 school board goals. You can see that attached and looking for approval, on these goals for next year.
Alright, Brian's looking for approval. Is there any questions or discussion regarding school board goals from anybody? Alright, if not, is there a motion to approve the school board goals?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Heather, second by Angela. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Next, I have update on just expenditures, so, looking at April 1st, which is about 75% of the budget year, we've spent about 72% of our budgeted for expenses. So if you remember last month, we were about 1% off. That's come down about a couple more percent. So we're doing a little better than we were even a month ago. So that was nice to see. Last year, we were at about 69% of our total budget expended. So just an update on expenditures as we've gone through the year. The other big update, I just wanted to go through the revenue projections, working with Ellers, our financial institute. If you just open that budget, revenue budget development, that first tab, the general fund summary, is kind of what I'm looking at. Last year, for the 22-23 budget, it was felt that we would have $15,335,000 in revenue coming in from all of our sources. As of right now, and there's still, the state hasn't come out, so I haven't used any new state formula allowance or cross subsidies, a big thing we've talked about. I've just used this year's numbers because we needed a starting point to kind of compare apples to apples. So without any new money, that put us about 1.6 million different. Now not gonna say guarantee, cause nothing's guaranteed, but pretty strongly feel that the state's gonna come through with a percentage on the student formula. They're talking about, the governor proposed 4%. I believe House or Senate, one of them has 4%, one of them has even 5%. So I feel like there's gonna be money on the student formula. And they've also talked about increasing revenue for the cross subsidy, which is to help with special education costs. The governor proposed 50%. Again, I can't remember which entity, the House or Senate, one of their changes of the bills has it at 40% right now. The other has it about 47%. So I feel like there's going to be additional money coming from the state. I haven't factored in kind of a guesstimation of $750,000, so that 1.6 million, we're going to have some money. I'm guesstimating right now 750,000. It could be more, could be less, but it needed a starting point, and I kind of picked a number in the middle to give the admin team a heading with that. The other part we're kind of still waiting on is what is the state going to provide the school districts for free breakfasts and free lunches. I can look back to the COVID years, what the federal government gave us, but I don't know if it's going to be perfect apples to apples what the state's going to do versus what the federal government did when lunches and breakfasts were free during COVID. So we're still waiting on that, and there's still a few federal sources that we haven't heard back from yet. So we're closer to a projection, but there's still so much uncertainty, and the state government doesn't, probably won't be done till mid to end May. So they send superintendents new updates weekly. Haven't seen it yet this week, but as that number shifts, I can shift our number. But for Kim, Bonnie, and I, and the other managers, we needed a starting point somewhere. Last year, in last year's budget, there was also about $420,000 left for fiscal health for the 23-24 school year. So again, that brings that 1.6 minus 750,000 minus 420,000. It brings it down, and kind of like Bonnie said, we're kind of looking at a number potentially between 300 and 400,000. I think that's high, but I want to be a little higher right now than a little lower, because we got to start communicating things like that. And start planning. What my hope is, and which we're going to get to in my next part, is to set a board work session for the end of this month, where the state's given hopefully some more specifics, but the managers and I can come with some ideas that we're considering. It gives us time to meet as a team, which we're doing again this week, and start talking with individuals who this could affect. But that's kind of where our revenue projection is, at least as of that day, which was April 6th. And we're working on that and hope to bring you some recommendations here in the next couple weeks. I don't know if there's questions on that revenue projection or anything like that. Otherwise, I'm almost done with this part. Otherwise, you can see our enrollments at 984 as of April 1st. Last month we were about 991, so enrollment is still fluctuating both up and down. I think I even saw some enrollments and ads today, which is pretty typical for us. We get enrollment ads and drops all the way into May. So this is still a number that shifts according to the numbers that we report to state with ADMs, which Bonnie talked about a little bit before, average daily membership. Our average daily membership is about 970, which is maybe a little low than what our student enrollment is. That's the number we're also looking at to start our budget process, is we don't want to predict too much and then kind of be in a situation where we don't have the enrollment that we budget for. So that's the number that we're kind of using with Ellers to kind of build the budget for next year too. And then my last part in this topic is like to recommend having a work session on Monday, April 24th, if it works for everyone, at 6:30 p.m. in Hinckley, to talk even more specifics about programs, areas, budget, as we head into May and June, which will be a lot of budget stuff as well.
All right, Brian had a lot there. But does anybody have any questions or further discussion regarding anything Brian has talked about? Otherwise, I will ask for a motion to approve for the work session on Monday, April 24th at 6:30.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Angela beat Julia.
okay, fine.
All right, we have a motion by Toby, a second by Angela. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Next thing, policy reapproval.
So just the second read of these policy, the student surveys is right from MSBA. A policy on students when they have to have surveys, and then the form that goes with that. And then the second policy, credit for learning, that there were some changes that we've had since the last month. We've updated from MSBA's model policy to what our credits are for kids that come into the school, and how many credits they earn, things like that. But the big change, which is down at the bottom, that Ms. Henke and Ms. Hartle in the high school office would like the board to consider, is changing all of our college and the schools classes to have a college weight of 1.25. We weigh our college classes higher than which we've done since before I was the high school principal, but they'd like to do that for all our post-secondary classes that we offer, both in-house and when kids are taking those via PSEO. So that's the biggest change in that policy. We haven't had this policy. We've had the practice. It does tweak the practice into this policy.
All right, are there any questions about the policies Brian has presented? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the two policies as stated.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave and a second by Heather. Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on, item 10, new business.
You can see the list for Jaguar Pride.
And next,
Did I spell Reese
I don't know
wrong?
if I copied.
oh, it says read.
Copied from her mother. Fixed.
Alright, next up, 10B, Quebec lease.
Yep, so I put this up for discussion, and I did talk with Mr. Quebec on Friday afternoon. So the LinkedIn document is a draft of a lease. I'm not looking for approval this month. I'll look for that next month. But 2 years ago, the board raised the fees to $700, which was to almost cover the taxes. The taxes really for the whole property are about $1,500. So because I knew the price difference, I wanted to get the board's opinions on that. When I did talk to Mr. Quebec, he would like to see the terms stay the same. I told him I was gonna see what the school board thought on that. It is a win-win, as it states in there, as the property is put to use. But I wondered the board's thoughts on, with the taxes being a little further apart than maybe some thought, what your feelings are. Again, Mr. Quebec would like to see the terms stay the same, and I told him I'd give him a call after hearing feedback from you all tonight.
How much are the taxes?
$1,500.
What did they go up from last year?
They went up 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and look.
That's $1,500 on just what he leases?
On the whole property, on all of the
So
Quebec property.
what half does he lease, I mean, of the school property?
He leases.
1,500 is on all the school property?
Correct,
Okay.
correct, and he doesn't lease all of it. He leases a little bit less than half.
So he's paying he's meeting the taxes on about what he,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking when we raised it a few years back, it went like from 300 or 400 to the 700. It was a major raise,
Was it a major one?
I think, if I remember right.
I can go back and look,
But
and get that for you, but
he's been renting it for years, or
Years,
leasing
yeah.
it, and it's been a good.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I think I don't need that.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, I'll give him a call tomorrow and bring it back for approval next month.
Alright, then moving on, 10C policy review, first reading for the three policies, 705 fund balance policy, looks like it will change to.
Yep, it will match MSBA's,
714.
yep. And then transportation of public school students and video recording, just a first read on those. Wondering if there's any initial feedback on those three policies.
Does anybody have any discussion or questions about the three policies?
I have one on policy 711.
Okay.
Does each of our buses right now have a video?
No, not, I don't believe so. Not every bus has a camera on it.
Cause that policy states that each and every school bus, blah, 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 will be
Yeah.
equipped with a video camera, so are we
We'll have to
violating
modify
that
that,
policy
yeah.
if we approve that next month?
Yeah, I'll have to modify that
Okay.
to change the wording so we're in compliance with what our
Okay.
own policy is.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
So the fund balance policy numbers will be matched up, but what about the actual policy itself? Will it match up with the actual MSBA policy for fund balance?
With the board, like, I can give you guys a comparison and see if you'd like to do that. I can
Yeah,
certainly
is
do
there a
that.
major difference?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I can certainly give you guys a comparison of what ours is versus what MSBA's is. And see if, I can certainly do that.
Anybody else, any questions, comments? Okay, moving on, 10D, District Auditor.
Looking for approval to continue with our district auditor. You can see that the price has gone up, for about $3,500, which is about what we expected. But you can see it's a 3-year agreement. Our business manager, Joanne Bruns, would really like to stay with the same company, especially as she's heading into her last year and not having to learn another company's way of doing our district audit. And they've been very helpful, especially as we've been going through all the federal funds and COVID funds to help us navigate those. So I'd like to get approval to continue with our same auditor.
All right, Brian's looking for approval for the auditor. Is there a motion to accept the district audit cost?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
One second.
It's a motion by Heather, second by Leo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. And the last item, it looks like we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by myself, a second by Heather. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 8:32.